Today I'm trying something new with my painting. I decided it would be a fun challenge to try and flip my process. So usually when I start a painting, I go through and I add aspects in black as an outline and I paint them in, find some other things, then add color and patterns after. Today I wanted to flip the process and do the colors first. I didn't want to make it too abstract. I didn't want to make it just where it's all color blending and nothing like an actual planned out element, but I wanted to have a nice mix of abstract but doodles in there, and I wanted to still have it kind of planned out in that sense, but do the shapes first and see if I can make a painting with a color scheme and certain details that make sense. In the past, when I've done it this way with the colors first, I've done a really abstract painting, and those are fun, but I want to challenge myself to do it with actual aspects and details and little elements that are more thoughtful. So I want to have some faces in there, some planned out things, little shapes that look like other objects, but I want to make sure it's not too abstract. I still want to do the kind of doodle style art that I do, but I want to just flip the process and see if I can come up with something that makes the colors work and is nice to look at. I've tried to do this in the past and I used the wrong colors and ended up just making it too abstract or the colors clashed, especially when I used colors that were too bright as the base. So I'm challenging myself to use a bunch of different blended colors and see how it looks and plan out maybe 5 elements that I want on the painting, or then see what way the paint dries, and sometimes I see a little shape in there and use that for the rest of them. Like I mentioned, I have done this before, and most of the time I kind of lose the goal halfway through, but there is one time that I did it and took a lot of time on it, and it ended up looking like this. And this is one of my favorite paintings that I've done. So I'm trying to create a lot of elements and color schemes that are similar to that. So I'm looking at that as a bit of a reference. I still want it to be different, but I'm using that to help plan a few aspects and colors. I really like using this kind of gray, dark blue, and I haven't used that in a while. Usually I use a darker turquoise or make it more purple. So I kind of like that, especially because recently I've been using more grays, and it's kind of a nice color that you can put on top of other colors or have as a base. And it's nice for mixing as well if you do it on some paint that isn't quite dry. It adds a nice texture and isn't too much of an aggressive color that overtakes other ones. So in this little square, I thought it'd be kind of a cool idea to have one of my paintings within the painting. So I'm gonna have it kind of hanging from those little chains to hold it up, or then a little triangle shape to hold it up. And I feel like it'd be a cool little element. I can add some colors to it and kind of have a miniature painting of mine within and kind of see how that looks. Then I also want to add some more of that gray blue color and the green as well, and have kind of a planet shape in this corner. Usually I do it in the other corner of the painting, but I kind of want to mix it up and see how it looks and make sure I'm adding other colors in that so it's not just all one. I find if it's just the one color, it gets a little bit boring to look at. So I'm gonna really challenge myself to make sure I'm adding different colors, whether it's blending or details afterwards in each color, just to make sure it's not a boring piece that looks unfinished. Oftentimes in my paintings, I don't use black other than the outline. So I thought for this one, it would be good to have a few parts that are black as a background color. And then I can use that to contrast with some brighter colors. I feel like that's why I like the other painting that I did, that one that I'm using this as a reference for. There were some parts where I had a black square or little areas throughout it where I could add some cool elements that popped out when they were bright. So I'm gonna try that a little bit and try to put some yellows and whites in those spaces. In a lot of my paintings, I have this little light bulb man. Usually it's like broken with little pieces flying off, and I like putting that in them. So for this one, the faces usually I outline with black, but I'm gonna try outlining it with a bunch of different colors and seeing how that looks, and then probably adding a pattern. And I think that's kind of a cool way of doing it that'll make this look different than my other ones. I find sometimes I'll paint a few in a row and they kind of become the same, but then that's where I usually get in a rut, where I feel like I'm just finishing the paintings for the sake of it. So I like doing little challenges and new things in each painting, just to kind of keep it fresh. Sometimes I'll paint things like emotions or things I'm working through, and other times I just kind of do fun stuff. So for the fun ones, I like to challenge myself to try and get a little bit better. I've mentioned in a past video, I don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to actual like technical art stuff. So I'm just kind of learning as I go and seeing what looks cool. So it's kind of part of the fun of it. I could never do landscape stuff where the proportions need to be right and the shading and all that. So I enjoy this kind of style, and I want to get better at it and see kind of mainly just experiment. Then I find sometimes when I experiment, different elements of one painting can go well with another element of another, and that's usually where I get my favorite pieces. I think the dark red color goes well with the kind of gray blue color. So I'm putting that kind of close to that little painting within the painting and adding it in other places. I'm using 3 different types of blue for this one, and so far they're looking good. I was a little nervous that they would clash with each other, but I like how it's looking, especially when I'm using different colors for borders on other stuff. It's an easy way to break up the color scheme so they don't clash even if they're close to each other. I think that's another reason why the other painting I did like this that was similar worked, is even if there were similar colors close to each other, I was able to have kind of a separation between them with some other blending and patterns. So kind of like that strategy, and I'm using that in a few different places within the painting. Initially, I was just gonna have this area black, but I thought I'd kind of add an arrow so I can put a color around it. I thought if I had it all black, it might kind of clash with the black square beside it, and it gives me an opportunity to put in another color that I'm maybe not using as much in other parts of the painting. So I'm gonna fill in that color by the arrow with this little turquoise, kind of darker turquoise color. It's nice to be able to have the separation with those orange kind of chain links, so I can use that color without it clashing close to the other blues. And I might even go in and add some other maybe white or yellow in it, just to kind of add more texture and kind of a difference for the eye to look at. So probably come back to that near the end, and for now I'm just adding a few more layers. For some of these colors I added 3 or 4 layers. I find I don't like when I can see the white canvas through the paint. It looks a little cheaper, and I like when it's fully covered and there's a nice texture of the paint, especially when I'm not doing a cover up on a canvas. I want to make sure that there's not a lot of white space at all unless it's intentional. So for some of these colors and the paints I only needed 2 coats, but some of the other ones like the light kind of gray, blue, and the brown I needed 3 or 4. In this corner I took inspiration from my other painting and decided to change it up with the borders within the shape. So I'm going to go in and add some other circles to kind of look like chains going through. And usually I would just border it flat across, but I want to switch it up, and I think it actually looks a lot better this way. So I'm going to do that. And with this kind of shape that kind of looks like a head, I wanted to border it with a few different colors just so it's not one line, especially because I'm using the red close to the other red. Kind of wanted to mix it in when the paint was still wet and see if I could get a cool color scheme. And I actually like the way it looks a lot. So I'll probably use that kind of color and that strategy throughout the painting a little bit more. Now I'm doing a little bit of color layering on this one. I wanted to give another coat of paint on that so it's still wet and it's able to mix nicely. So I don't use a lot of paint when I do that. I want it to mix well with the other colors, so it kind of creates a cool texture. And now I'm going through and adding some more lining to the little painting within the painting. I wanted to make the border a little thicker just so it doesn't get lost with the other darker colors. And going through and adding some borders and designs to make colors pop out. I think I need one more color around this face, probably white in the green, and we'll see how that looks. So now just doing some more orange on the gray and blue, just kind of a lot of light colors on the darker colors. I wanted to layer this little blue part with the other blue-gray and see how that goes. Then I like this dog that I had on the other painting, so I'm going to do that design. Kind of like how it looks, kind of looks like a Wheaten Terrier. It was a family dog I had growing up, so shout out to the Wheaten Terriers. And I also like that I had a few different colors of the stars with the black background. So I'm doing that throughout it, and I really like how it pops out more than just using one color on it. So that's something I'll definitely be doing in future paintings a lot more. At this point, I really like how it's looking. I like the colors that I used. Sometimes I just do all dark colors or all light colors as the background and the main ones. But I like how this one I had those light blues in it, and even the orange color kind of adds a bit of more of that bright color. So I like the way it's looking so far color-wise, and now I'm adding more aspects and details. So I'm gonna go through and add these little gold chains to this corner. I think it'd be kind of a cool pattern on top of the black. And that's one thing that I did in the other one that I really liked. So going in, I'm adding more of that orange yellow than I thought I would. I think it complements the dark colors, especially the black, really well. And that blue-gray face, I'm gonna add it in the middle as well. I thought about maybe blending colors and having a few there, but I'm just gonna keep it the yellow. And also border this face with a bunch of different colors. I'm gonna add the yellow too, and I like how it's looking, but I think it is missing some details, so I'm gonna go in and add a few more elements. Now I'm adding some red raindrops in this little corner. I think it goes well against the green and with the gold. I'm trying to find a good balance on how much detail to add and if I'm forcing different details and aspects, so then it looks not even just busy, but kind of too random, like I'm just trying to fill space and do it as quick as possible. So I'm trying to be mindful about the colors I'm using and make sure that it's not kind of slipping back into the more doodle style that I usually do, where there's a few more planned out aspects. I want to keep it bordered with other colors than just black and kind of keep it that more color first theme. Usually I'll go through at this point of the painting and border everything with black, but I want to do some other colors as borders and have some just blend into each other. I will do some lines that are black outlines, but I want to have a good mix. Sometimes I have a piano in my paintings, and for this one I'm going to do a kind of abstract one, so I'm going to have a few different colors layered and put it in there. So I have that gray and orange so far, and I'm going to add a few details around it so it kind of looks like a piano, but it's not so obvious. I usually do it and sometimes leave it black and white, but I'm going to stick to the color scheme that I'm using and try to have more of that abstract feel. Now I'm going through and adding a few borders in black. I want some of these elements to pop out a little bit more. So I'm just adding that because there's a lot of dark colors around it, and just doing some more of those just to section it off more. Then going through and just adding a few more little touch-ups where I'm adding more colors or more details to it, and some of the thicker borders I'm adding some colors within it. And I feel like I'm pretty close to finishing this one up. I don't want it to be too busy like I mentioned before. I just want to make sure that it's that nice balance of enough to look at, but not so much where it's cluttered. Something I liked about the other painting is I used a lot of little stars and different colors within it on black colors. So I'm going through and making sure that each one of those sections has a good amount of little details within it, just so it's not just one shape. And I like the yellow and white together, so I'm just going through and adding a little bit more of that. I wanted to make the lines on these little X and O's pop more, and I thought that the green would look good bordered in yellow. I just wanted to make this one thin, and it actually did look good. I was a little nervous. I didn't know how it would look compared to the other colors, but I didn't have any sections that are mainly this yellowy gold, so I think it's used the perfect amount throughout this painting. So now I'm just adding the last little bits of patterns and colors. I'm seeing a few areas that look a little bit plain, like these burgundy ones, and the white looks good with it, so just adding a few little lines and little details and making sure that each part of the painting has the same kind of detail as other ones. And I like how it looks. I like the different lines that I was doing, and some of these ones were a little different than I usually do. So I like the mixture of elements that I used for this one. The last part of the painting that I wanted to do something to is this blue. I was gonna add another doodle, but I thought it would be too busy, so I'm just adding a bit of green just for a little bit of pattern and a little bit of difference of color there. So now I'm just signing it, and it is officially done. I like this one. I think it's a good start for doing more like this. I might do a series around this and have a few larger pieces and some smaller pieces, and I like it. I think it's a good kind of change to some of the other paintings that I've been doing. So thank you for watching, and I'm going to make this one into a time lapse as well.